So this game is called Chess but Way Cooler, and it's an expansion on chess. What it allows you to do is play the regular game of chess. You try to checkmate your opponent's king. But you also have these cards, and these cards give you abilities that regular chess wouldn't. For example, you can do additional moves. You can do moves that would be illegal in regular chess. You can bring pieces back. You can destroy your opponent's pieces. Also, I find that in regular chess, often once you've done a few combinations, if you're playing someone who's better than you, they kind of know how to beat you already. But when you're playing with these cards, there's new strategies that you can come up with that would thwart them, that wouldn't exist in regular chess.
So you're saying I can beat Magnus Carlsen if I play this game?
If you play your cards really well and he plays them really poorly, then you're a lot closer.
That sounds like a yes to me.
So at the start of the game, we deal each player 3 cards, and we share the draw pile and discard pile. The first thing you do is you decide if you want to exchange a card in your hand for a card in the draw pile. For example, if I get rid of this card, I can exchange it for another card. Then the next thing I do is move a piece, just like in regular chess. As usual, you have to move out a check if you are in check. And then finally, I can play any number of cards from my hand, 0 or more. And then in my turn, and you repeat the same thing, where you exchange a card if you want to, then you move a piece, and then finally you can play any number of cards from your hand. In order to draw cards in this game, you draw a card every time your opponent takes one of your pieces. So for example, if my opponent were to take one of my pieces, at that point I would draw a card. And then when his turn ends and it's my turn, I decide what I want to do. And if I take his piece, then he draws a card. So the turn structure goes like this. You exchange a card, you move a chess piece, you play whatever cards in your hand, and then your turn ends.
After refining my strategy, I think that I'll exchange a card for another card. And after that, I will move my knight.
I'm going to kill his pawn. That means he draws a card. And I'm going to play a card too. I'm going to play one called Bad Trap. When I play Bad Trap, it kills any of my own pieces and the identical piece of my opponent. In this case, I'm going to pick my horse and kill his horse. So here's a scenario where we can use a effect, action card. And what he's going to do is first he's going to move his piece. Then he plays Substitute, which swaps a position of one of his pieces. In this case, he's going to swap his horse and his castle. And by doing that, he's actually put me into a checkmate position. Here's a scenario where I'm going to use a card called Bad Day at Work. So I move my piece first. I then play this card called Bad Day at Work. And what this card allows me to do is to kill any pawn on the field. In this case, I'm going to choose my opponent's piece, and this puts him into a checkmate position. In this scenario, we're going to play a card called Spider Shenanigans. And that allows you to swap a piece with another piece that's dead. So first he's going to move his piece, his horse, into this position. And then he's going to play the card, Spider Shenanigans. And what this card allows us to do is swap a knight, bishop, or castle with a dead knight, bishop, or castle. In this case, he's going to choose the castle. And by doing this, once again, he's put me into a checkmate position. In this move, I'm going to do a combination of cards. First, I'm going to take his pawn. And he draws a card. Then I'm going to play one called Bad Trap. What Bad Trap allows us to do is to kill one of my pieces and the identical piece of my opponent. In this case, I'm going to pick our castles. I'm going to kill these. And we draw a card each. And then I'm going to combo this by playing one called Ditto. And what Ditto allows me to do is to copy the last card that was played. In this case, the last card that was played is my Bad Trap. So I get to repeat the effect of the last card, or whatever card happens to be in the discard pile. In this case, I'm going to take out our castles again. By taking those out, I've pretty much ensured that I win this game in this scenario. This turn, I'm going to play a card called King's Vacation. I'm going to move my king to the end. I'm going to play this card, King's Vacation. And what it allows me to do is to swap the positions of a king of mine with any pawn that I own. In this case, I'm going to swap it with my pawn. And by doing this move, I've brought my pawn to the end of the board. It's a very powerful move, because I now get to, by bringing the pawn to the end of the board, you always get to swap it out with a piece of your choice. This move, I'm going to use a card called Sad Bodyguard. First, I move my king, and I play this card, Sad Bodyguard. It allows me to bring a pawn back to life on an empty square next to my king. So any of these positions that are directly around my king, I can place a pawn of my choice. By placing my pawn here, I've actually achieved a checkmate position. Chess But Way Cooler also includes cards for an advanced optional setup. So for those of you who want to randomize your starting positions and add a little more variation to the game, we have cards for you. Simply lay out the cards in 2 rows of 8. Now that I've laid out my cards into 2 rows of 8, I can start placing the pieces on the board. So since the pawn is here, card, I'm now going to place a pawn in the corresponding position. So pawn, 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 pawn. So my opponent will have the exact reverse of mine flipped on both the X and Y axes. So if I have a bishop here, my opponent will have a bishop here. If I have a castle here, my opponent will have a castle here. On, and so on, until the entire board is the exact mirror.